Congressman Markey, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the breaking news tonight, the company executives now broaching the idea of killing the well in a way that we hadn't heard of before. It's called a static kill. It's a lot like the old top kill procedure that failed, but the difference is that instead of pumping mud into the well as the oil gushed out, it would inject mud with the cap on and the well sealed. A relief well might then only be needed to confirm that this static kill actually worked. The end result would be a dead well. It would also deprive scientists of a chance to hook the well up to surface ships to finally get a precise reading on the flow rate and thereby measure how much oil is out there in the Gulf and thereby better determine how much liability BP is exposed to. The company could end up on the hook for as much as $4,300 per barrel of leaking oil.
In this case, these dispersants were used in massive quantities, almost 2 million gallons so far, to hide the magnitude of the spill and save BP money.
That's why it's good that Admiral Allen has asked BP to provide a schedule and a plan for full containment. The reason this is important, for every 10,000 barrels per day that BP spilled into the Gulf of Mexico, the fine is $3.5 billion. If it was 60,000 barrels per day, that would be $18 billion. So this is no small matter, and if it is possible to measure the containment, to measure the oil flow with precision, then absolutely it should be done. We have to keep an eagle eye on everything which they do because they're intending to lower the liability at the expense of the livability of the Gulf of Mexico.
And the government, both EPA, NOAA, etc., have been sock puppets for BP in this cover-up. Now, by hiding the amount of spill, BP is saving hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in fines. And so from day one, there was tremendous economic incentive to use these dispersants to hide the magnitude of the gusher that's been going on for almost 3 months.
We have to keep an eagle eye on everything which they do because they're intending to lower the liability at the expense of the livability of the Gulf of Mexico.
And when they did that, experts saw that the amount of material, oil, being released is orders of magnitudes greater than what BP and NOAA and EPA were saying. And the cover-up started to evaporate. But the use of dispersants has not.
Bob Dudley, who's basically now running the operation for BP now that Tony Hayward has sort of been, banished to Europe, he indicated they might, be willing to have kind of running commentary over the underwater camera video explaining what's going on, or words on the screen explaining what's going on. He made he indicated that in this YouTube forum that they have. It's on tape. We have the tape, but now it's been 2-3 weeks later, and they've not done any of that. And they're saying, look, we're it's not our job to do that.
If you remember back in the second or third week, some engineers, I think, at BP invited Woods Hole to come down to measure the flow. And then on the day before they were going to go down, they got a call and said, you don't have to come down. Obviously, the lawyers told them, we don't want an accurate measurement of the flow of oil going into the Gulf of Mexico. We have to keep an eagle eye on everything which they do because they're intending to lower the liability at the expense of the livability of the Gulf of Mexico, which is why I pressured BP to put up the camera. I think the same thing has happened here. What is going on is they might, for a nanosecond, try to become a little bit more transparent, but when they go back into the corporate boardroom and they think about it, the idea is nixed every time, and it's been going on for 3 months with the same pattern. We have to keep an eagle eye on everything which they do because they're intending to lower the liability at the expense of the livability of the Gulf of Mexico.
Consequently, we have people, wildlife, we have dolphins that are hemorrhaging, people who work near it are hemorrhaging internally, and that's what dispersants are supposed to do. EPA now is taking the position that they really don't know how dangerous it is, even though if you read the label, it tells you how dangerous it is. And for example, in the Exxon Valdez case, people who work with dispersants, most of them are dead now. The average death age is around 50. It's very dangerous, and it's an economic It's an economic protector of BP, not an environmental protector of the public. Now, the one thing that I did want to mention to you, Amy, that's occurred in most investigations, back even in the Watergate days, people said, follow the money. And that's correct. In this case, you've got to follow the money. Who saves money by using these toxic dispersants? Well, it's BP. But then the next question, I've only seen one article that describes it, who owns BP? And I think when you look and see who owns BP, you find that it's the majority ownership, 1 billion shares, is a company called BlackRock that was created, owned, and run by a gentleman named Larry Fink. And the Vanity Fair just did recently an article about Mr. Fink and his connections with Mr. Geithner, Mr. Summers, and others in the administration. So I think what's needed, we now know that there's a cover-up. Dispersants are being used. Congress, at least 3 Congress folks, Congressman Markey, Congressman Nadler, and Senator Mikulski are on the case. And I think the media now has to follow the money, just as they did in Watergate, and tell the American people who's getting money for poisoning the millions of people in the Gulf.